Lucid and the Billy Woods are the duo that is also named as Armand Hammer. And they put out a pretty cool album in 2013, I believe, titled Race Music. It was pretty cool. It has some quite noisy elements to it as well. And of course, Lucid and Billy Woods have their own solo discography that is absolutely worth checking out. I feel quite ashamed in saying that I've not properly gotten into Lucid's music, heard a few albums, thought they were pretty decent, but I should probably give him more of a chance. But Billy Woods actually is one of my favourite rappers, I think, at the moment, to be honest, because he has a great run of albums. History Will Absolve Me being my favourite. Another great one is the one that he dropped this year, Known Unknowns, which is going to be on my year-end list for sure. And today I wrote Nothing, which I think was another great underrated hip-hop album from 2015. And these two do come together as a great duo. I just think on this album I'm not quite feeling it all the way through, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not worth your time, and I do recommend it. I just think there are some issues that I'm just not quite sitting with on this one. Some of the production is a bit jarring to my ears. It's not quite as fluid when you listen to it. It's kind of messy in its sound, which I'm sure is what they're going for. That's the aesthetic for Armand Hammer here. But just as a listen, it's just not all that comfortable for me. Too many instrumentals are a bit hard to stomach. And I've got to say, Billy Woods isn't sounding quite as sharp on this album as he usually does. I think he's a bit shouty at times, sounds a bit like a barking dog. You know, he does drop some pretty good lines, but I just think the way he sounds isn't at its best. Especially since one of my favourite hip-hop albums of the year has come from Billy Woods, so I guess I'm just expecting a bit more from him on this album. But Lucid, I think, steals the show. I think on tracks like Tread Lightly, he just puts up this front that's so good, and it's got like a menacing tone to it. I just love the way he sounds over these beats. I think he fits these instrumentals slightly better than Billy does, and not only that, but he's just sounding so great as well. Some of the hooks do run slightly too long at points as well. They're a bit overdone, which I saw was a criticism for Billy's latest album, but I think on this one they're just not as like ear grabbing. I think they're just more a bit like, they just annoy me a little bit more. It's like an ocean out there, sometimes I wonder how I keep from going on. Which I'm sure you know is an interpolation from the Message, the classic hip-hop song from the 80s. It Was Written is actually one of the better tracks on this album, I think. I think this one has some really good like political hot takes, if you will. I do think they do ramble quite well on some of these tracks politically. Sometimes though I feel like they haven't got quite there with what the point they're trying to make is. It just feels like they're meandering a bit too much at times. But with these two rappers, you've got to read into the lyrics because you do miss some things. So I think I have missed a few things here and there, but most of the time I do feel like there's just not quite a concise idea going on. And as I've already said, some beats aren't that as exciting for me, so when that is the case, I'm not as focused on the lyrics because I'm more focusing on the kind of odd instrumental that's going on that doesn't fit in my ears so well. It's very similar to my issues with Uncommon Nasser's Written at Night album, which what I think was great, but again it was just sometimes the beats were just like so like oh, that I just wasn't quite as captivated on the MCs that were rapping, because on this album, you know, you do get a lot of great rapping, especially from Denmark Vesey on one of the tracks as well. Denmark Vesey, I said his name wrong, I fucked it up, I do apologize. On the track Shammgod though, this is a really good one. I think he steals the show on this track. He sounds so great, his flow just again fits the instrumental perfectly. And Quelly Chris makes an appearance too. I'm not the biggest fan of that guy. I know a lot of people loved his album from this year. I thought it was good. Not in love with it though. But he's always really smart with his lyricism. He's like a Milo in that sense. He does come out with some pretty cool lines. So overall, I think it's a pretty good album. I'm going to grade it a C. I think a lot of Underground heads will like this more than I do. Just for me, again, some of the production's not all that good. Some of the hooks are a little overdone. And I think Elucid in this case is overshadowing Billy, just because Billy's not at his best, I don't think. But do check this album out, Almond Hammer with the album Rome. Please let me know what you think of it if you've listened to this, and subscribe to the channel.